This is KeymcTV Reacts, and we back with more reactions. We're gonna be reacting to why AALIYAH's music isn't available. Let's find out. This should be very interesting. Y'all like, subscribe, turn on those posts notifications. Like I always say, I'm gonna be back with more reactions, and let's see whether this is facts. I want to see y'all opinions down below. Down below in the comment sections. Let me know how y'all feel about the situation. Let me know what y'all know about the situation. Give me some of your input about this. So let's go ahead and get into this reaction right about now. All right, y'all ready for this tea? Let's see what he about to say.
AALIYAH stands tall as one of the most influential R&B acts to come out of the 90s. She is not only revered for her timeless songs, albums, and fashion, but for breaking down barriers for young black women in the industry.
Period.
Up until AALIYAH, there was a shortage of young solo black women who experienced crossover pop success, a drought that lasted for quite some time, until she arrived on the scene. After AALIYAH, we had artists like Brandy and Monica. In 2011, Brandy sat down with Billboard to talk about her admiration for the late singer. She was the first girl on the scene, Brandy says. She came out before Monica and I did. She was our inspiration. At the time, record companies did not believe in kid acts, and it was just inspiring to see someone that was winning and winning being themselves. When I met her, I embraced her. I was so happy to meet her. I told her how much I loved her. She said the same thing about me, and we connected. It was a great moment I'll never forget. She was humble and unique. She wasn't afraid to express her individuality. That's what I learned from her. What you saw was real. It wasn't anything put on and anything fake about AALIYAH. That's what I loved about her. I have every one of her albums and know all the words to all of her songs. It's just unfortunate that she's not here with us physically. She will live on forever. She started it all for my generation, and she will forever be an inspiration for me. Forever. I'm shaken up just talking about her. She will forever be an inspiration to me. I love her and want to send love and positive energy out to her family.
Man, I just wanted to go to a concert, bro. Like, dang.
Albums. The controversial Age Ain't Nothing But a Number is her debut album, which is shrouded in a lot of
Age Ain't Nothing But a Number.
Kelly's heavy involvement in the album, who would later go on to illegally marry AALIYAH while she was only 15 years old. He was heavily influential in the album's sound, image, and direction, serving as the sole executive producer. They were introduced to each other by AALIYAH's uncle, Kelly's manager, Barry Hankerson, when she was just 12 years old. R. Kelly wrote and produced every song on the album by himself. Nothing But a Number has some great R&B tracks that are essential to AALIYAH's short catalog. Truthfully, the album itself is essential to her career and legacy, since it is the album that started it all. I think a lot of tracks on this album have sonically aged gracefully. The hard-hitting New Jack swing beats combined with AALIYAH's soft, sultry vocals is a very definitive sound for 90s R&B. Her cool tomboy image made her appear to have an effortless edge.
I ain't never seen nobody dress.
It's something that many stars after her
like,
over time would adopt.
She did.
However,
the tomboy
it is
look.
Impossible to look back on this album with only appreciation
it was the
for
best.
talent
When she did
and
tomboy. When she did the tomboy. It was like the best ever. Nobody can like rock tomboy like AALIYAH.
Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, then had a 15-year-old girl whom he was preying on sing that song, is why this album can't be fully embraced for AALIYAH's showcase of her talent without a dark shadow cast over it. Not only did R. Kelly write and produce the entire record, besides one cover song on the album, he's on the album cover as well. The album can feel like a product of R. Kelly at times more than AALIYAH, which in many ways it is, since he was the driving force behind this record. But due to R. Kelly's actions, it's nearly impossible to listen to this album with innocent ears, or without some level of discomfort knowing what had occurred. This album will always have some form of complexity surrounding it. On one hand, it is a cohesive, well-produced, and nicely sung record that has aged exceptionally. On the other hand, the presence of R. Kelly is unwavering in every aspect. Outside of being the sole creator behind the scenes, he even contributes vocals on a majority of the tracks, so he's always there in one way or another. But also, what people tend to forget is, Aaliyah, who's the star, was young, innocent, and simply creating a record to fulfill
I
her
love
dream.
this picture right
And
here.
that she did. After Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, Aaliyah will go on to make more important, influential, and just overall better records. Yet, the album that's her least best, most controversial, and shrouded in the shadows of R. Kelly, is her most accessible album to date. It is her only album on streaming services, her only album available to purchase on platforms, and is practically the only album of hers you can listen to digitally. Her only album available is the one where a known child is the driving force of the record. Needless to say how this could turn off a new generation of listeners who want to know more about Aaliyah and listen to her
I've been listening
music,
to her music
but also
on
her
Music.
Kelly's
If y'all know
message.
that app called
Aaliyah's
Music
second album, One in a
off
Million, is
of
arguably her most
the App
influential
Store,
and most referenced album.
y'all should download it.
The
You can
title track
download
alone
any
is a
Aaliyah song you
quintessential
want.
R&B song that's been sampled by Jay-Z, Ariana Grande, Tink, and most recently former Fifth Harmony member Normani. Aaliyah wasn't treated like a victim when it came to R. Kelly. In fact, she was villainized. It is awfully peculiar to think that this actually happened, but it did. As a result, a lot of producers didn't want to work with her, according to Aaliyah's cousin and Blackground Records executive, Jomo Hankerson. That's what made the transition to the second album difficult. It was hard for us to get producers. We were coming off of a multi-platinum debut album, and except for a couple of relationships with Jermaine Dupri and Puffy, it was hard for us to get producers on the album. She was 16, 17 at the time of the second album. I just didn't understand why they were upset with Baby Girl, says Hankerson. Allegedly, no producers wanted to get involved with Aaliyah's second album.
Her nickname was Baby Girl.
By having R. Kelly on a few tracks.
Was it?
Nonetheless, Aaliyah persisted. I faced the adversity. I could have broken down. I could have gone and hid in the closet and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I love singing, and I wasn't going to let that mess stop me. I got a lot of support from my fans, and that inspired me to put that behind me, be a stronger person, and put my all into making One in a Million, Aaliyah said. She had a complete change of sound with a more refined and mature image. But more importantly, it's the album where she would team up with the iconic production and songwriting duo, Missy Elliott and Timbaland, who would help usher in a fresh classic sound that is still quite popular today, with Aaliyah being the face and force behind it. She helped introduce a new sound to the world. It was a much darker and a bit more of an audible.
This song when she was singing in the rain though, baby, she was killing it with them vocals.
First album.
All in that, she was all in white too.
Magical trio. And not only did it further Aaliyah's career, but it jump-started the latter two's career as well, in a time where they were just starting out. The drum-heavy beats, minimalist and sometimes eerie production, tagged along with the avant-garde ideas and sweet, lush harmonies, are the sonic takeaways from this album. Timbaland would lend the sound he created on Aaliyah's records to multiple acts throughout the years, experiencing an overflow of popularity in the thousands, and it's a sound that is still in rotation in R&B and pop music today. A beautiful blend of hip-hop, pop, and R&B. Yet the album and where it originated from is not accessible, as opposed to the many records it has influenced. After One in a Million, Aaliyah lent her voice and now signature sound to a plethora of different soundtracks, but none made more of a statement than the 2000
Romeo Must
Die
Die
hit, Try Again, which was the first song to go #1 based solely off airplay, and remains Aaliyah's only #1 single. Try Again is futuristic synth R&B at its finest. It's no surprise that it lands atop as one of Aaliyah's signature tracks. It is a sound that would be adopted on a lot of tracks or albums that came after it.
Are you that somebody? Are you that somebody? Is an obvious.
Aaliyah's third and last album, simply titled Aaliyah and sometimes referred to as the Red Album, was an extension of the sound she had on One in a Million, but also featured tracks that were a little more contemporary, like the song Rock the Boat, which is also in itself a song that is reminiscent of Janet Jackson. And that's not to say she had lost her experimental edge with this album, because We Need a Resolution is easily one of the most eerie and experimental popular R&B tracks of its time. Her vocal nuances and the way her vocal itself is sort of used as a studio instrument is certainly something that will become more prevalent in pop music after her releases. Majority of this album was written by Static Major, and AALIYAH still stands as her most accomplished album to date. All three of her albums were a steady improvement, and quite influential in their own respects. AALIYAH, the album, reflects the growth of the star that she had become musically, a mature, charismatic, yet vulnerable woman. Timbaland made his best work alongside
She
AALIYAH.
was just finna
Although
take
he went on
off.
to produce a lot of good to great
Like,
records,
really take off.
his
She was
work with
already
AALIYAH
taking
is
off, but
ambitious and
after that,
pleased. Despite the influence her records, songs, and even fashion has on the industry today, it's far more common for her not to be mentioned in any conversations, due to the inaccessibility of her music. It's been nearly 20 years since she has passed, and her discography should have already gone through a renaissance period, and a few archival campaigns, meaning remasters, vinyls, special editions, or reissues of her most popular work. Instead, her music
all three
isn't
albums
available
is
for
hits
user
though.
purchase,
They all
streaming,
hits.
and it's even hard to find her music videos in high quality. I would at least expect her music to be available for purchase, but that's not even the case. Although her work has a lot of significance, it's more likely that her peers whom she's influenced receive recognition before her. Her uncle Barry Hankerson is to blame. He was her manager and the co-founder of her label, Blackground Records. He managed her song deals and essentially guided her through the industry. He has full control of her masters. After she passed,
So he not gonna
was
release her
devastated
music. What you
and
telling me?
allegedly never really recovered.
Is what you telling
Hankerson
me?
is an odd man to say the least. He has a history of troubling allegations, from faulty deals to explosive relationship drama. According to Complex, in 2012, Hankerson sold a stake in Blackground's publishing rights to Reservoir. The centerpiece of the deal was AALIYAH's tapes. At the time, we were talking about releasing it for the 10th anniversary of her death, says Golnar K. There was even supposed to be a posthumous album involving Drake and a few other rappers, but that got cancelled. There have been tons of updates by her estate regarding her music being placed on platforms, but to no success. As recent as 2021, the estate has spoken out about their fight to put her music on platforms. "We hear you and we see you," the statement from the late singer's Twitter account reads. "While we share your sentiments and desire to have AALIYAH's music released, we must acknowledge that these matters are not within our control, and unfortunately take time. Our inability to share AALIYAH's music and artistry with the world has been as difficult for us as it has been for all of you. Our priority has always been and will continue to be AALIYAH's music. In the meantime, however, we are working diligently to protect what is in our control, AALIYAH's brand, legacy, and intellectual property. In doing so, we will continue to release unique and exciting projects to keep AALIYAH's legacy and light shining." It concludes, "Undoubtedly, we understand how frustration can lead to anger and disappointment. However, we ask all of you for your continued support and love as we aim to achieve these goals for all of you and our baby girl. We appreciate you." Her Uncle Barry still has control over all of her album's masters, except her first. What's even more unfortunate is that Blackground Records has negatively affected a ton of artists who were once on their roster. You cannot find albums by Timbaland, Toni Braxton, JoJo, and Tank on streaming services, while some of the albums they recorded while they were on the roster, due to Hankerson holding the music hostage. JoJo would eventually re-record her albums and was involved in a long, messy legal situation with her former label. JoJo had signed a 7-album recording contract with Blackground Records when she was only 12 years old. The situation with the label ultimately led to her going away from the spotlight for a few years. It was such a bad contract that the label owned her voice, literally.
Owned her
I wasn't
voice?
able to
What
release
the
music
fuck?
for a long time, JoJo told HuffPost. "I was in a bad contract, and the label I was with didn't have distribution, and I wasn't able to release anything. I didn't own my voice, so I was stuck in a situation where I just felt like my hands were tied, and they were. In 2014, she would finally be let free. Unfortunately, AALIYAH isn't alive, but there were many inclinations she left behind.
If she was alive, y'all would have no choice but to put her music on
Regarding her Marvin Gaye
Apple.
cover, she
on
said,
freaking
"I don't know how Marvin Gaye
iTunes.
fans will react, but I hope they like it. Always think it's a great compliment when people remake songs. I hope one day after I'm not here that people will cover my songs." and her songs have been sampled a ton and sometimes covered, but her music itself is not available, which can affect her legacy over time, and in some aspects, I think it already has. Leaving AALIYAH outside of the digital world, where the biggest, most iconic, and essentially every artist today, past and present, is accessible, undermines her role in pop culture. CDs have become less popular, and while vinyls have experienced a resurgence, there aren't any reissues of her records. In fact, they're quite rare and expensive. We've already moved into a digital world. Even though I don't think AALIYAH will be forgotten completely, I do think her legacy and visibility could diminish over time. There's also an extremely strong chance that generations to come will not be as familiar with her, or even know who she was or what she did. Hopefully her estate acquires her recordings before this decade is over at least. During the end of this decade, we will be nearing 30 years since her passing.
Dang,
That's
30
longer
years?
than the amount of time she lived. The music being accessible is long overdue.
You gotta be kidding me. 30 years? Hold on. It ain't been that long. It should not be overshadowed or overlooked by the tragedy she experienced while she was alive. Tragedy is a part of her story. Man, 30 years? Hold on. I know that was in 2001. She ain't been dead 30 years now. Come on. 2001. That's 20 years. Where did he get 30 from? Or did I not listen very well when he said that? Y'all, I feel like they should release her music and put it on iTunes Music, but they're probably not. It sucks. Like they said, it's kind of difficult to, release her music on music. If you have an iPhone, if you have music, I'm gonna put the app right here. I suggest that you download it, man. You can listen to any song you want to listen to. You can listen to all AALIYAH, all, cause it's on there. It's not in iTunes Music, so you can't download her music. You can definitely go to YouTube and listen to her music, but people want to actually download it. They want to actually have the song with them. They want the song with them. They want her albums. They want everything that had anything to do with AALIYAH. They want it. But, I have no clue what's really going on. I can't just sit up here and say, well, yeah, he's just doing this and doing that, man. I don't know. But I wish they would release her music, her albums and everything. Anything that had AALIYAH in it, they should release it. And what are y'all thoughts? What are y'all opinions? Comment below, let me know. Gang, we out. Thank y'all for watching.